Hello, everyone. How are we feeling after that nice long break? Did we find our engagements? Did we get an airbrush tattoo? Not yet, right? I want a cityscape airbrush tattoo by Somos Arte. Welcome to the very first session. You're here in the auditorium. This session is the ChiBlockBuilder, bringing new activity to vacant land. So just making sure you're in the right space and place. Welcome. I am so excited to introduce our first session featuring local artists and developers who will share their successes and challenges in transforming vacant city-owned property into vibrant community assets. Like someone was saying, they really want to continue opening the community garden spaces. They want to reclaim the land. Like let's really feel how we can be creative and innovative in this discussion. So think about all those questions that you might be having during this panel, and remember, our panelists will be hanging around in the hallways and in the break rooms and just around. So if you really have a burning question, they will be here around if we don't get to it at any point in the panel. So they will be here for you. We'll have additional resources and engagement activities in the hall. And we will make sure that you can have connections. So if you need to get in touch with their programs or their organizations, we'll have all that information and make sure that you can find it in your programs. There's all of the names of the panelists and attendees and their organizations listed there. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce to you your panelists for today. Give a round of applause. Come on, we've got a lot of love and energy in this room. And these are amazing, vibrant, brilliant artists and activists here in the city. Our first panelist is Tonika Johnson of the Folded Map Project, which I mentioned earlier. Yes. And Louie for Future Firm. AJ Patton, 548 Enterprises. And your moderator, Lesley Roth, Lamar Johnson Collaborative.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited about this talented panel of folks and particularly the relevancy of the topic today, which is activating vacant land. Just wanted to do a little bit of level setting around the context of our conversation today. We know that there's a lot of historical implications to why vacant lots exist. That can be regulatory, it's because of racist policies, which we'll get into, and also the impact that it has on community, if that's mental health, if that's wellness, if that's values of homes, etc. Tonika's going to talk a little bit about the difference between the north and south sides of the city and what vacant land means there. And just to talk about a little bit of statistics and give a quick shout out to Professor David Brown, whose image you're seeing here from the Available City. There are about 30,000 vacant lots in the city of Chicago, and if you aggregate the vacant lots, they pretty much fill all of the loops. So this is a significant geographic area in the city of Chicago that we're talking about. About 43% of the city-owned lots, which make up about 30% of those vacant lots, are within a half mile of transit. So there's also implications, particularly in low-income communities on the south and west sides of the city when you talk about household income. The Available City is really, let me go back one here to quickly talk about this. Professor David Brown is a designer. He was the artistic director of the 2021 Chicago Biennale and really created this idea, which I love and think that it's an inspiration to us all, about community-led design approaches. Moving forward to some tools that the city has actually created to resolve this idea of vacant land. You can see here, ChiBlockBuilder is the name of this session, is one of those tools. We're also a large lots program where neighbors on the same block can actually buy a vacant lot for $1. And then there's also the Missing Middle Housing program, which encourages developers, generally small developers, to activate vacant land as well, which you're seeing here. The city also has a program to activate vacant lots called POP. It's Public Open Places, and this is one that you're seeing here in the community area of Roseland. This is POP Heights. It's 25,000 square feet, and this is the first open space to be activated, parked space to be activated in this neighborhood in over 50 years. So the implications on wealth building, on mental health, on wellness in communities is pretty significant. There's also a dichotomy between the preservation of open space and the preservation of wealth in neighborhoods. It's a challenge of balance and decision of priorities. So communities and individuals may see this as a both and. The positive impact of open space in communities that don't have their fair share is proven. However, historical draining and challenges to restore wealth is many times in those same communities and important to their future well-being. So we'll just flip through a few of these pictures that demonstrate, this is Pop Courts in the Austin neighborhood on the west side of the city, and Pop Fit also in Austin on the west side of the city. These vacant lots really represent an opportunity for a variety of purposes and policies. And we'd love to dig in with our panelists now to talk a little bit about their areas of expertise and passion around vacant lot activation.
Well, hello. I'm going to kick it off. I'm the artist, so I'm just gonna do a little interactive question with you all. So raise your hand if you have heard of the Folded Map Project prior to today. Oh my God, I'm so flattered. Well, okay, that's perfect. I don't need to talk about this project. You all know, you all get it. But I would love for you all to raise your hand. This is where transparency and honesty is important, especially when we talk about developing neighborhoods that have been historically disinvested. Raise your hand if you have heard, have been advised, or have been told that the South Side is dangerous and you should not go. Raise them high. Now everybody look around. That is essentially what my work is about disrupting that narrative and also helping people understand how just that advice is perpetuating all of the continued disinvestments and segregation, and makes it very difficult to do the work that people like me in neighborhoods like Inglewood do, which is wanting to add value to our neighborhoods, wanting to invite people to come to the neighborhoods, but confronting that narrative is really challenging. So the current project that my Folded Map project has brought me to, I did not intend to go down the rabbit hole of vacant lot acquisition, real estate, but when you talk about disinvestment, historic racism, it always comes down to land and property. And so my current project is called Unblocked Inglewood, and I am using it as a public art project because homes, when they're beautiful, it is public art. We have New Orleans to use as a reference, but before you can beautify a home, you have to deal with the structural repairs that are needed, or the deferred maintenance. And a lot of legacy homeowners in Greater Inglewood, they can't afford to get those repairs, so they can't even think about beautifying their homes, wanting to do something to the vacant lots that they have been stewarding. So this project, funded by both of these departments that have put on this event today, is really saying that we want to offer these home repairs for free. So I partnered with an amazing nonprofit, Chicago Bungalow Association, to offer free structural home repairs, such as roofs, electrical, plumbing, all of the things that if you are a homeowner, you know they are costly. And they can prevent you from accessing important free programs like free energy efficiency programs, which is another barrier. A lot of Black homeowners in these neighborhoods can't even access free programs because of the deferred maintenance of their homes. You can't get energy efficiency upgrades if you have a leaky roof, and those programs don't cover the cost of that. So that's what Unblocked Inglewood is doing. We've repaired 12 homes on the one block of 65th and Aberdeen. We have 13 more to go, but we're also doing vacant lot beautification. And this is where it gets really interesting. Pretty much helping residents understand the process of acquisition, rights of entry. Those are all of the things that I'm going to be able to talk to you all about today, the challenges, the benefits, and then also what we have to think about as residents when we want to acquire vacant lots. It's not only just gardens that are possible, but the possibilities that aren't available to us because of the devaluation of the neighborhood. So that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And a lot of my work is participatory, community involved, and really deal with addressing that.
Thank you, Tonika. Ann?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Ann Louie. I'm an architect. My practice future firm, we don't work in any one specialty. We don't do just housing or just restaurants or just healthcare. We like to say we are trying to work with change makers in different communities across the city, whether that's small business owners, community-led developers, or nonprofits, to make the change that's really vital in South and West Sides and in communities of color all across Chicago. I'm here to chat about, I think, the ways that design and architecture can help us think through the challenges of vacant lots. And I have 3 projects that I'm just going to give a few sentences about that maybe can open up some conversations about the challenges and opportunities. This project, also a POP project, Southside Sanctuary, is at the corner of 47th and King Drive. Those of you who haven't gone, shout out, you should go. There's a farmer's market every Sunday. That's really wonderful. Our client, who is actually the owner of Bronzeville Winery, which we had designed 2 years before, more shout out, Cecilia Cuff, realized that there was really a demand for spaces for wellness, for entrepreneurship, and for coming together. So these previously vacant 4 city-owned lots, we worked with Cecilia to transform into a space that's open to the public and can be used for events of many kinds. I think with POP, just to quickly say, I think there's 2 pieces that I want to flag. One is that even though we call vacant lots vacant, they're not truly vacant, right? They're being used, they're being activated by folks in the neighborhood. What we saw when we started working on POP was that there was a shortcut that cut across the 4 vacant lots where people were moving from the train to the bus stop or to their home, right? So we just made that permanent. We made it accessible to folks in wheelchairs, people with strollers, and we added kind of greenery and shade and spaces nearby to stop. I think the other thing is it was a community-led project kind of through and through. Our client, Revolution Workshop, who does workforce development on the west side, bringing folks from underserved communities into trades, built all the carpentry for that project. So that was a project that kind of built on a family network and grew bigger. And then you're also going to see 2 housing projects here. This one is a proposed idea for missing middles. It's a row house concept. And the idea was that we really want to try to drive down the cost of construction while bringing up quality of life inside residential spaces. And too often, I think we think about those things as a zero-sum game, right? You drive down construction costs and you make spaces less nice. But design can actually do the opposite. So the idea was to take an off-the-shelf industrial building. Some of you guys might know it as a butler building, the kind of buildings they use to like store salt in, for example. But if we think about this as a row house system, a crane could come and lift a long span truss down the long way down the lot and drive down construction costs while creating, and I think there's an interior image, a beautiful double height space for family gatherings and lots of natural light. Hem House, which you see here, and I'll just say one sentence about this. This is a project that we were on the develop, design, and construction side. The idea was to bring down the cost of construction using kind of loopholes in building code or construction that we had seen before. So for example, another thought about vacant lots is they're often contaminated. Because of the histories of disinvestment in South and West Side communities, homes were also often demolished into their basements, leaving contamination both in the soil and driving up the cost of excavation. So Hem House, which is a slab on grade, basically built the way a garage could be, insulated slab, brings down the cost of construction while making it accessible to somebody in a wheelchair. When the house went on the market, it was the 5th least expensive single-family home, new construction in the city of Chicago, and it sold in 2 days to 2 public school teachers who had been renting in the neighborhood. So we're really proud of achievements like that, and we believe that using design, we can make a real change in neighborhoods going forward.
Holy cow. That's awesome. That sold that quickly. My name's AJ Patton. I'm the founder of 548 Capital and 548 Development. We build sustainable communities. Our mission is to have sustainable communities for all. I founded the company about 8 years ago with the premise that everyone should have access to clean air, clean water, and low utility bills. And the premise for the company actually started in 1999. My mother received a $400 gas bill. We had a leak in the roof, could not fix it. She was making $10 an hour. And so unfortunately, we got our gas shut off, and for a year, we had to boil water to take a bath. So unfortunately, that's an experience that a lot of people have. And what I wanted to do was build a company that directly combated that experience so that no one else had that. And so the companies are named 548 because that's the unit number in the projects that I grew up in. We started the company 7-8 years ago around building sustainable, affordable, and housing and industrial that is for everyone, that's built sustainably. And so what you're seeing probably here behind us, and let me take a big step back. So we started with some 6 flats in the Auburn Gresham neighborhood where my grandmother's from. Then we bought the block over there at 79th and Loomis, if you know where the White Castle is over there. So we bought that, and we made that entirely energy efficient. It was one of the first buildings that had fresh air ventilation put into it in the entire community, and so I have to give a shout out to Alderman Moore. And then we had, and this was all done with private money, and we raised some money and really beat up on the banks to try to support us, which was for another day. Yeah, we should talk about the banks in this. But then we got lucky, and this is where leadership matters. And so, you know, when we started investing and saying, hey, we're going to make the South and West Side have access to solar power and EV charging stations, we're building the first fast charging station on the West Side on actually where this project is here, which I'll talk about in a second. We're building another one on 89th Street, which we'll talk about in a second as well. You know, these communities have been left out of the sustainable conversation. And so everything we do has rooftop solar, has EV charging stations. And the other thing that I'm passionate about before I start talking about projects is also who gets those jobs. And so one of the other things that we've done is we started a foundation to do the workforce training so that when we invest on 89th and Commercial or 79th and Loomis or Avers and Chicago Avenue, we make sure that those communities are at the table when the jobs and the contracts are being divvied up. And so that's also really important. So, lastly about leadership, and before I talk about projects, as you guys have paid attention, we've changed mayors, and I cannot say enough, leadership matters. We've got, I think, a really good mayor, but more importantly, he's hired darn good people. We may have right now the best planning commissioner the city's maybe ever had in Sierra Boatwright, and she is an advocate and making sure that everyone's at the table in these conversations. And folks like myself that are doing 6 flats in neighborhoods folks don't want to drive through now are getting to do projects of this scale because we have an advocate in the commissioner's office. And so I don't know where Sierra is, but she knows she's got a brother in me. So to these projects, this is a great project. This is a project we're building in West Humboldt Park. It's 60 units. It's passive house. So this is almost net zero, 100% affordable on Chicago Avenue in Avers. The architect of record is Lesley Roth. Designed by a black woman. Let's just get that out there. The biggest sustainable project. So this will have a level 3 EV charging station. So that's the fast chargers. This will be the biggest, fastest charger on the west side. I think the first fast charger west of Western. So this is a really, really cool project. This will break ground in a couple of weeks, actually. We've got another project, really dope. This is 89th and Commercial. We call this project Galleria 89. This will also break ground in right after the winter, so like March. Same thing, passive house, almost net zero, powered by solar, EV charging fast station. And Peter Chico's the alderman there. I don't know if you've ever met him, but he's like the future of our city. That dude's awesome. Just a really good dude. Lastly, this is our other project in kind of the south. We call it the South Loop Solar Lofts. We're turning a warehouse into 50 units of solar-powered, all-electric lofts. And so it's in the near south side, like near the old Dearborn Homes neighborhood. And so really excited about that. Just making sure that all people are at the table. When we start talking about solar power, that is not a luxury item. Everyone should have access to those things, and everyone should be getting access to those jobs as well. Really glad to be here, too. Thanks, Lesley.
Awesome. Thank you all. I mean, wow, you guys, this is an amazing panel of, I mean, you've seen their talented work and the power of their work to be able to transform neighborhoods and create unique opportunities and enhance quality of life. I mean, this is extremely important, and also put money back into residents' pocketbooks. You know, one of the things that we think about is we know that none of the projects that you're working on have been easy. I mean, you've already kind of given a little bit of, spoilers on what some of those challenges can be. But really digging into how to make this activation of vacant land accessible and attainable, we have to overcome those challenges. So my first question is, and we have to identify specifically what the challenges are and who we should be working with, where those bridges need to be built or where collaboration needs to happen. So my first question for our panelists today is, can you share some of those challenges and how you've been able to navigate cross-sector relationships and collaboration with residents, nonprofits, elected and appointed officials, and the city?
I'll kick it off. For me, as an artist who is deeply committed to not only my neighborhood but the city, it's really important for people to understand the history and how those vacant lots came to be. Not just to bring up the harm of historic racist housing policies without the hope of a solution, but when you know the history of a problem, it can help you identify points where you can solve them for the future. And so a lot of my work is helping to expose how the Black neighborhoods, specifically vacant lots and vacant homes, came to be. And it really is because of our city's history of predatory housing practices and a very specific one called land sale contracts that pretty much demolished the value of the West Side as well as the Inglewood neighborhood. And it's important for us Chicagoans to know that civic history because it can open your mind to what you can contribute to solve it. And increasing the value, helping residents increase the value, doing projects like Ann and AJ is really helpful, and you can understand why it is helpful. And so for me as a resident who's embarking on all of these cross-sector weird arts and community development projects, one of the important challenges has been not exposing history, because I got that down, but really helping people understand in the neighborhoods that the systems that have historically harmed us aren't necessarily our enemy. And it really is the people that work within a system that can determine the impact of it, which is why calling out Sierra and all of the people who work in DPD and DCASE that help residents like myself navigate that red tape is really important. And so it's not just only about calling out what the city isn't doing right, but really creating pathways to communicate what your challenges are, and knowing that as a resident, you can do that. These are people who work within systems, people who have amazing value systems, and they are just an email away. So, I have been a bridge to the residents on 65th and Aberdeen and the cross-sector relationships with DPD, DCASE, and other nonprofits, kind of being a translator of what the residents, including myself, what we're having problems navigating, and quite frankly, the acquisition and accessing legally the vacant lots to do build-outs beyond gardens is a challenge. And so that's something that the amazing people who work within those city departments are helping the residents participating in my project navigate. But it is an issue. It is an issue.
Absolutely. I mean, that you bring up a lot of really interesting pieces of the social dynamic and what relationships mean, and cultivation and the strength of those relationships mean to project success. I'm also interested, AJ, in your feelings on what access to capital means for overcoming challenges to these projects.
So you've heard me go on this rant before. Okay. So look,
we only have a few minutes.
Only have a few minutes. Okay. All right. Strap in. So, I've just recently gotten comfortable with going public with this, but I just got to lay some basic facts out. When we first started with the Six Flats, we had raised private money about $1 million, and I went to every single bank on LaSalle Street, and I mean every single one of them, and I said, I'm going to take this $1 million and I'm going to create sustainable, affordable housing on the South and West Side. Here's my business plan. Here's $1 million. I even hired a Harvard person to stand next to me so they felt comfortable. True story. True story. And every single bank told me no. I said, I will deposit my $1 million in exchange for a line of credit to build these. I have contractors, I have insurance, here's my business plan. We're going to use the ComEd Energy Efficiency Grant, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They said no. And I said, well, why? We don't lend in those neighborhoods. And they said that directly. So I have them all on the record. I'm petty. I got the notes. So, but I only.
You can make our project out of it.
But I say that to say, what I learned is that the banks won't lend directly to our communities anymore without a tax credit or a TIF, which is a massive red flag. Secondarily, then they lean on CDFIs to do the lending without acknowledging that the CDFIs are more expensive capital, longer underwriting process, and much more arduous in how they handle our contractors and community in general. So, you asked me about solutions. Luckily, we took the high interest loans and made do, but we still remember who those folks are, and eventually we're going to have those conversations. But when we went to the bigger deals, they said, well, we're going to invest in those neighborhoods because we're lucky enough we've got advocates in City Hall, and we've got TIF. They asked that the city and or the larger institutions put their money up first before the banks are involved, and then they wanted to dictate who the contractors and designers are because I wanted to bring folks from the community to the table. Here's the solution that we found. At the end of the day, the bank controls the story, but they don't control the ending, right? So what we did was we said, okay, you're comfortable with this contractor, this architect, this group. We're going to ask those folks to come to the table, but they're going to partner with women and minority-owned firms. So yes, you can be the headliner, but we're going to build capacity for other folks. So Lesley works at a large successful firm that she's the partner at. She partnered with a black-owned architecture firm named Gregory Ramon Design Studios. We did the same thing with the engineer, the same thing with the contractor, up and down, from the accountants to the lawyers. And so we made it very palatable for the bank, but also made sure that there was real equity and representation at the table to get those deals done. We're going to continue to do that, but continue to advocate that those folks change those strategies so that we can get access to capital with our own people at the table and not needing to bring new folks.
Thank you. I mean, it's a really powerful story around the power of narrative and storytelling and changing perceptions about who we are in our neighborhoods and what those neighborhoods bring in terms of opportunity and wealth building potential to residents who live there. So, Anne, I want to dig into this idea of, crafting narratives around and storytelling, because the award-winning missing middle housing plans that you've created really do that. And in the projects that you showed us, there is a change in who's buying the homes, what neighborhoods the homes are being built in. And so I'm wondering if you can share with us aspects of some of those projects that celebrate those neighborhood stories, or why you think crafting narratives for these neighborhoods, lots, homes, and residents is so important.
Yeah, I think Tonika and AJ both talked about this already a lot. Tonika said, how many people have said that the South Side is a dangerous place to go to or be, right? Or banks who clearly have inherited that point of view when they're saying there's no comps, and what they mean by that is we don't know the South Side or the West Side and we don't believe in it. But those of us who live and work in South and West Side neighborhoods, we know there's like a million amazing projects, small businesses, amenities, places to go, and that those neighborhoods are going to be destination locations to live and work. Mm-hmm. And that to me is a story that is just needs to be told and needs to be emphasized over and over. I think on the design side, one thing that's really important is that when I was coming up as an architect, and probably same as you, Lesley, there was like this model of a Starchitect who kind of came in, had a crazy idea, walked away, and you had to live with it, right? I think for me, design should do the opposite. It should be a platform that elevates voices from the community that you're building in. Sometimes that's in ways that are about workforce development, right? On POP, Revolution Workshop, those are folks who live and work in South and West Side's neighborhoods. They're actually building the space, right? So that's related to what AJ was talking about. Sometimes it's more visible. At POP Southside Sanctuary, Cecilia's team led a public art competition with D-Case so that an artist from Bronzeville was responsible for creating all the kind of murals and public art that surround the space. There's also, I think, temporary activations. As an architect at Sanctuary, one of the things that we did was actually invisible work. It's one of the only POPs with Wi-Fi, water, and power, which are those permanent infrastructures that you really need to host events and elevate the voices of folks from the community through public programming, through performances, through yoga class, through businesses that want to rent to host an event and expand the work that they do. So I think for me, the story shouldn't come from me as an architect or as a designer, but instead we act as a kind of amplifier, as a megaphone to say, here's what's already happening. Everybody kind of take a look and change your perception of what you think South and West Side neighborhoods are.
Tanika.
Oh, you felt me on?
Yeah. She was like,
yes, I love everything you said, and really for people to know the importance of history. You cannot create a solution if you do not know who all of the actors were in the problem and what the issue is. And so even AJ using the example of those banks, there are banks that were connected to, responsible for, and have acquired the banks who were directly connected to the disinvestment of the South and West Side. And through history research and art projects like mine, specifically a project called Inequity for Sale that preceded Unblocked Inglewood, you can identify those people, those institutions. So my Inequity for Sale project, it created landmarkers for just 13 of the nearly 600 homes that were stolen from aspiring Black homeowners in the 50s and 60s. And what made me want to tell you this is because, Anne, you mentioned about invisible, invisible assets, but also invisible harm. And so this project aims to highlight the homes, the properties that we're all around that is directly connected to this history. And it was one of those landmarkers that I made that connected me to one of the couples, the aspiring Black homeowners in the 50s and 60s who did not get a mortgage, who was sold a land sale contract without knowing. And I was connected to their son, who still lives on the same block his parents were trying to be homeowners on. And it was him that told me about the challenges that the seniors and other homeowners on 65th and Aberdeen were going through. And that is what prompted me to want to do my current project. And so I say that to say the power and importance of relationships, and also to elevate the importance of art. It isn't only just murals, it is creative thinking and ways in which that we can collaborate across different sectors, but really understanding and wanting to have a curiosity about our history and how we got here, and to understand that it is literally because of racism. And if we can just accept that, then it'll be easier to work together to come up with solutions. But to know that is the root of all of these issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And absolutely. And the fact that residents want to invest, Tonika, I hear you saying. People have been there in neighborhoods for generations. They don't want to move. They want to continue to invest in their neighborhoods. They want to, continue to create that legacy and share the positive news about their communities. This is the heart and soul of where all of us are, where we're from, is our home in community. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, we're talking about a significant issue, over 30,000 vacant lots, and a disproportionate number of those are located in Black communities specifically. So the hard part of this is, even when folks in neighborhoods want to invest, that $1 does not equal the same in terms of wealth building and equity in their neighborhoods. And Tonika's project, Folded Map Project, and her new project actually highlight this, the disparity between north and south sides in terms of wealth generation and property value increases. It looks differently across the city, and AJ, you've made a giant investment on the south and west sides with as well with your development. And most of us know developers who, are in and out of deals and are interested in only getting, what they put in out as quickly as possible. But the longevity of your developments and your long-term investment is meaningful. The question I have for the panel is, what does land and property value mean to you in your development of vacant lot activation? Because it does not appreciate the same across the city. Please share your thoughts on how to close the equity gap.
Okay. I just double dutch into it.
Go ahead.
Softball question.
Yeah, soft. So, Unblock Inglewood is not a project that I want to scale up to be a whole separate organization, entity, developer. No, I really want it to be a demonstration, a case study of how cross-sector relationships and art can provide investment in one block. It may not seem like a lot, but that's 22 homes, 22 vacant lots, okay? And most of the people who live on that block are legacy homeowners. And really using this project to demonstrate how they are not able to have a high-valued home, but then also, I call it simple because it is nothing but, navigating some processes, simple things that can be done to show how to increase the value of not only their home, but their quality of life. And for me, it is supporting, with this project, it's identifying that legacy homeowners in disinvested neighborhoods, helping them. That's one of the many ways to kind of minimize the disparity in the racial wealth gap, because we can focus on new homeowners, which is amazing, but we can't ignore the problems that homeowners face in disinvested Black neighborhoods. So helping them stay homeowners is a focus for me, which means helping them identify resources and funds to do repairs so that they can remain in their neighborhood and not become a home that is foreclosed on, or if they're older, that they have to just sell and go to senior living. So really preventing further property loss is what I'm using my project to kind of help elevate and contribute to the racial wealth gap conversation, because they need help. And you can't just go around creating new homeowners without supporting the ones that exist in disinvested neighborhoods, because they have been the engine of neighborhoods like Inglewood. If it weren't for these older Black homeowners in Inglewood who have weathered the storm, all of our schools would be closed.
AJ, do you have some thoughts on this? How to close the equity gap?
How to close the equity gap. We're going to need more than 3 minutes for this, but I'll just say coalitions matter. And, having, you're not going to solve this with one or two really great, thoughtful folks. You need to have architects, activists, elected officials, bankers and lenders, urban planners, contractors, all involved in the conversation. We use public land on several of the projects. All of those people need to be in the conversation, and then the community needs to have a presence in those particular conversations as well about what the projected outcomes is. There's probably a nerdy answer around urban planning, Because one of the things that I hate to see is when there's just these isolated investments that are not thought through, where there could be much more targeted, strategic opportunities where we've been left out of the conversation. For example, we're sitting here in the West Side where billions of dollars have been invested in the West Loop, and that is inching itself west by the hour. You know, how thoughtful are we being with the Garfield Park area? What's going on the west side of Humboldt Park? Making sure that we're being thoughtful about those investments. Because I hate when we get too far ahead and then then more and more folks get cut out of those conversations, or displaced, frankly. That's, just to say the quiet part out loud. So, there's a nerdy urban planning thought that needs to be had, and then when we do those targeted investments, making sure that everyone's at the table.
Yeah, maybe just 2 cents on that. I think coalition building is right, and the idea that every strategy is also critical at the same time. Like for me, I think all of these things have to happen at the same time. It's not just housing. It's not just small business. It's not just public realm, civic open space. It's not just existing homeowner-occupied housing. It's all those things together. Vacant public schools, right? All this change has to happen at the same time to create really wonderful, thriving neighborhoods. I think the way that I talk about it in my own practice is building the community of the project, right? When we worked on Southside Sanctuary, the builder, the general contractor on that, is a resident of West Garfield Park. We're now working with a community-led organization to think about creating homes in West Garfield Park targeted at existing homeowners who want to buy in order to kind of expand their footprint. So I think that, like you said, it's not about any individual project or individual person. There's no way the kind of complexity of these projects are solved by, or these kind of questions are solved by individuals, and there's no one answer, right? So I think all of us have to kind of keep pushing in our own fronts, in our own fields, advancing at whatever spatial scale is possible to make really significant and impactful long-term and durable change.
Awesome. And we only have 30 seconds. Can I just say the one quiet part out loud?
Yes, please.
Because this is relevant to the week that we've just had.
This is where I was going to go with
elections matter. This conversation wasn't had 2 mayors ago. It wasn't happening 3 mayors ago. So who sits in the 5th floor matters, and who your alderman is matters, because there wasn't millions of dollars being invested in these communities. There wasn't a black developer grabbing a microphone telling you that they're investing millions on the south and west sides without a black mayor or a wonderful planning commissioner and housing commissioner and Marissa Navarro, now Lisette Castanet. Like, that doesn't happen unless we get the right leadership in place. And so I think there might be a lesson this week that we've got to stay focused on making sure that we continue to support, even when they have shaky weeks and months. I know some of our friends have had those lately, but we got to stay true to making sure that we stay together right now, and so that we can stay having these conversations and having these great moments. Sorry, Leslie.
Thank you, AJ. I think that's an incredibly important point to make. We have all had a very, very, good God, very long week. And, I don't like ending on false positives because this is an ongoing issue that we all, are a part of and we're implicit in. I just want to say thank you and give some gratitude to the audience today for participating in this conversation on a Saturday morning, and your investment in the creation of positive futures for all Chicagoans. I want to end, I'm going to take one last minute because I think a way that you can get involved is what makes this conversation impactful. So I want to do a quick lightning round with our panelists and answering the question, how can Chicago residents get involved with this conversation?
Do what you're doing now, civics, local government. I think to AJ's point, what we've all experienced this week really elevates the importance of local government, local community involvement, because change probably won't happen at the rate we want nationally. So really digging your feet down and pulling up the roots of where you're from, where you live is really important, and being part of today is the start. So continue doing what you're doing.
And
Yeah. For me, the answer is jump in and join in. There's no need to. For me, I think these kind of questions are so complicated. There's no way we can solve them individually. So follow folks like Tonika, like AJ and Lesley. Find out what's already happening in communities and neighborhoods, and put your weight behind that work in any way that you have. Whatever you have to support or give or contribute or build value with, you join in and you support and you amplify others. And I think working together, this is how we're going to make real change.
thank you, AJ.
One of the worst kept secrets is that, for some reason, I don't know how this is a secret, but Chicago is still the best city in the world. And so it just is, not to be condescending to the other people. I'm sure they have nice lives, but this is the best city in the world. And so my ask would be, when you see something you like, tell somebody else. Tell that to your alderman. Tell that to your neighbor. Let's build that momentum of positivity, because it's going to start with us, and that's important right now.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists today. Thank you all so much for your contributions, and thank you all for joining us today.
Wonderful, wonderful. Again, for Tonika and AJ and Lesley, wonderful, wonderful conversation. Incredible. If you're fired up to make your change, if you're fired up about these narratives, if you're also fired up about awareness, I think a lot of the takeaways that we have here is just the awareness of the history, the awareness of what homeowners are going through. For me, it's really about home ownership in my own community. I love the fact that you said that. A lot of people cannot afford to have a home where they live and also have access to a lot of these energy efficient programs. And so even just the awareness, the accessibility, we love the fact that you will be hanging out and speaking to folks who might still have questions. And thank you, Lesley, for moderating such a wonderful, powerful conversation. I'm emotional about the narratives, and I am so ready to activate and ready to change the way that people view Chicago, and also the power of narrative, and our stories are important. So thank you all so much. We're gonna take our break. It's noon. We'll have our next session at 12:45. Food will be available in room C, and arts making, again, if you need to color it out, you can color it out. There is no age limit here. It's all welcoming. We also will be having refreshments in room C till 3:15, and also movement. If you did the movement section in the Weston, how do you feel? You shook it out. The somatics, baby, the somatics. It's in there. Yes, question. The conversation itself is so powerful. It takes up the space of the session. So we made our breaks a little bit longer so people can engage in conversation. And even if you cannot get direct access to these folks today, there's still open communications. We'll still be able to get there. But yeah, they're gonna stay in the hallway. Yeah. Yes.
The name and the name of your organization.
Yes. Go down the line. Name and organization. Just one more time.
One, two, three, one. I do have a quick question. Is this room going to be used?
We're meeting people in the hallway.
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. So I'll be out there if you wanted to.
Yes. All accessible. And when it's a hallway, that main space, so there's plenty of room and time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And you can Google me. I can say that now. So the organization is Folded Map Project, non-for-profit. It's now non-for-profit, but the easiest way, IG. I live on Instagram. I share my projects on Instagram and Facebook. So my handle is Tonika J. You can literally just Google me, and my email will pop up as well.
And these presenters are in your program, so all of the information, names, and organizations are in the program. Yep.
I'm Ann Louie from Future Firm. We're also on Instagram. Please follow.
Yeah, my Instagram's all baby photos, so you don't want to see that.
We want to see it though, AJ. We need to know.
AJ
548.
548 Capital, AJ Patton. Easiest is probably LinkedIn to get over me.
And
Lesley Roth, Lamar Johnson Collaborative.
Thank you again. Thank you so much for the conversation.